2 years I've owned this thing now. Quite hard to believe actually, and I thought what better way to mark the occasion than bring it out to one of my favourite roads, go for a bit of a hoon, and also share with you guys the highs and lows of ownership. Bonus points to anyone who can name this road. So I'll address it straight up. Yep, I'm thinking about selling. I may well live to regret this one. Now, it's no reflection as to how I feel about the car. Anyone who knows me knows I love a GT R. They're the underdog that takes the fight to the automotive aristocrats of the world. And who doesn't love an underdog? So it does then beg the question, why sell it if you love it so much? Well, the really rather simple and rather bittersweet answer to that is, it's not that I want to sell it, it's just that there are so many other cars that I want to experience, and the idea of having more than one relatively expensive car just isn't feasible for now. Let's start by getting this out on the road and telling you why this is such a hard decision to make. So obviously we're going to talk about that VR38 engine. For those of you who don't already subscribe, it's got the obligatory 4.25 pack on it, so it's as near as makes no difference, 700 horsepower. But somewhat more amazingly than the power is the drivability and the composure of this thing. I don't know about you, but I think about a 700 brake horsepower engine as being a bit of a spluttering, horribly idling mess. This thing could still pass as stock. So one thing about the 4.25 pack is it retains the original GTR turbochargers. We've not had to upsize them in order to make the power and introduce a whole lot of new lag to the car in doing so, which I really like. I think that's one of the big benefits of having twin turbochargers. The way the power is fed in as well is really progressive. That helps with traction. We'll come on to that. But it's just super smooth. In turn, a lot of that's probably down to the way the mapping's been done, which was Romain at GM Imports. Utterly fantastic job. This car drives just like stock, but with a whole lot more power. When you combine this amount of power with that much composure, it's certainly impressive the way it can mask the speed, but as I've learned over the last couple of years, not always necessarily a good thing. So I also own a Honda Civic Type R EP3, and one of the aspects I really enjoy about that car is you can take it out on the road, rattle it, get through the gears, right up the RPMs, you look down and you're still only doing 40-50 mile an hour. The GTR, on the other hand, is the polar opposite of that. The minute you start to open this thing up, you look down and things are becoming very illegal very quickly. I don't want to say it's too fast for the road, but I'm sure you get my point. You really can't be opening this thing up on the roads if you want to keep your license. So it kind of goes without saying that all that power is nothing if you don't have a chassis and a drivetrain capable of harnessing that power. And thankfully, the GTR double ticks that box. Because what have we got? We've got the engine up front, we've got a main drive shaft running to the GR6 gearbox at the back, we've then got a secondary prop shaft running back to the front, capable of sending 50% of the power back from the gearbox to a front differential, which will then distribute it to the front wheels. That's one of the reasons why the GTR has so much composure, and it's also one of the reasons that the GTR is so personable. It's got so much character to it, it's so chattery, and it's also the reason why if you have someone telling you the GTR has no personality, you can tell them they're full of shit. So on note of that GR6 gearbox, it was one of the first true dual clutch gearboxes the world had ever seen. And Nissan, well, they didn't get it right straight away. There was a few problems with the early ones. I'm sure you probably heard some of the horror stories, but it is true, and that's why I'll always recommend someone looking at a GTR to look at a 2011 DBA onwards car. I'll add a bit more information at the end of this video as to why that extra spend is a good idea, but take it from me now, it is a good idea. Now still, even in a DBA or onwards GTR, it's not perfect. If left in auto, the thing's just far too lazy. It'll try and get to 6th gear by 36 miles an hour, which just so happens we're doing right now 35 mile an hour and we're still in 6th gear. So you end up with a car just sort of bogging down as you drive around. It's really not that pleasant. But get used to flicking these paddles, and that GR6 is every bit as quick as any of the modern stuff. Oh, and yeah, 2011 DBA onwards, if you're in R mode, it will let you double downshift, which is a nice touch. So the Atessa all-wheel drive system on the GTR then, it's an interesting thing, and honestly 2 years on from now I'm still learning how it's going to react to different circumstances, because it's constantly optimizing the car and analyzing what you're doing. So it's looking at things like steering input, brake input, accelerator pedal position, your pitch, the G in the corner, and consistently making changes to the car. But here's the thing, as you get this thing moving around a back road, you can actually feel it working. The car feels alive in your hands. It's almost like having a co-driver there who's constantly making little suspension and differential changes to squirt you out of corners as quickly as possible. It's really unusual, and honestly the only way I can say you'll get a true feel of it and be able to experience it is getting behind the wheel of one of these cars. I've never experienced it in any other. It's also the GTR's little secret weapon, I believe, up against cars it technically should lose against. Because if you take, for instance, a Quattro Audi, it's always feeding power to four wheels, therefore it's got more drivetrain loss. This Atessa system, although it's capable of passing up to 50% of the power to the front, it'll only do it if it detects more traction is needed, therefore minimising the loss, maximising the power, and giving it the edge. Often more traction isn't needed if you're roll racing from 60-70 miles an hour, especially with a 335 section rear tyre. You don't need it. Nice CSL M3 there. Steering, let's talk about steering, because I am so delighted that Nissan decided to stay true to the traditional hydraulic rack, which is surprising because it was very in vogue at the time to switch over to the new electronic racks. Nissan themselves in that same era used the electronic racks in some cars as well. I know because I've driven them. A bit numb, and they also had artificial road texture built into them. Can you imagine if they'd done that to the R35? There would be outcries, and rightly so. Instead, we've got this really rather wonderful communicative hydraulic system in the R35. We dodged the bullet that we didn't even know was coming our way, believe me. It's especially surprising that it's this good given the mass, and also remember we've got a front differential up there as well. Now there is one thing that I would love to change about the GTR, something that's irked me from the beginning, and I can't believe more people don't talk about this, because honestly I noticed it from my first drive and I've never really forgot about it. Maybe it's one of these things that when you do notice it you can't forget it, but what I'm referring to here is the pedal weightings. Now the brake pedal, absolutely fine, neither miraculous or sinister. In fact, I've actually become quite accustomed to it and I quite like how progressive it is. I'm used to it. But the featherweight throttle pedal on the other hand, oh no, I just can't get used to this thing at all. I think it's made weirder because it's powering what can only be described as an absolute atomic bomb of an engine. And also, it's emphasised because all the other inputs, the brake and even the flappy paddles, the steering to an extent, all require a very sort of intentional input. And then you've got that airy-fairy throttle pedal. It's just very bizarre. It doesn't detract from the driving experience, but you will notice it now that I've said it. This is Sir David Stirling, and don't worry, I'm not about to give you an analogy as to how the GTR relates to this legend. I just thought it was quite a nice spot to pull up and finish off this video. The R35, it's a hard one to try and summarise in a sentence, because on one hand it's this savage brute, and on the other hand the combination of that Atessa system and this chassis reminds you just what an accurate, pinpoint, razor sharp device it can be. I really do think as we move into this new electrified car world, it's cars like this that'll have us look back fondly and think we really did have it quite good, didn't we? As for me and what's next, who knows? I don't even know myself at this point. If I can't get what I feel this car is worth to me, I'm more than happy to hang on to it and continue to enjoy it for the foreseeable. But as I said, there's so many different car experiences to be had out there, and I'm eager to go on and try new things. So if any of you subscribers are looking for a well-sorted R35, you can reach me at the email address in the description below, leave a comment, or hit me up on Instagram. It doesn't make it any less sore, but sometimes change is necessary. Now thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you for the next video.